Andrew Steinkoff from Building Conservation Technologies was awarded the contract.
Well, pricing these sort of jobs is always very difficult. You just have to rely on a bit of experience in working with old places to come up with a rough estimate of how long you think it'll take, and then add 20 or 30% and hope you did okay.
The first thing that he did was tarp the whole building, so he had a series of tarpaulins across the whole site to keep water out. And once he'd done that, he set about a process of stripping any fire-damaged or rotten or deteriorated fabric out of the building.
We've propped the ceilings with plywood and 50 to 100 mil of foam to cushion, to allow for the undulations, as well as I've covered it in plastic and temporarily sealed all the cracks in the love and plaster, so that once the roof comes off, I can clean off the back of love and plaster and saturate it with acrylic. So we'll take care of that while the roof's off. When it came to the roof framing, there was 3 separate problems. There was obviously the fire damage, which had destroyed one whole section and badly damaged other sections. There was the damp problem, from which had been going on before the fire, and because the fire weakened the structure, it allowed more moisture in, so that made it worse. And then there was the termite damage, which I assume was exacerbated by the extra moisture getting in, so they started eating probably another third of the building. We disturbed this about a half an hour ago, and they're already disappearing. They must have a nest back in the ground that they're all going back to. In the areas where the fire obliterated completely the old structure, it was quite simple to put new roof structure in the original position because it was all new. The other areas where it was only just damaged, where we could lay new timbers next to the old ones to stabilize it, weren't too bad. Some of the areas where the roof was in relatively good shape were actually the hardest because it was difficult feeding in new sections of timber into the old structure to stabilize it. The new roof had to be put in a slightly different line over the original structure. So the purlins and ridges are all nice and straight now, but they're packed up at different varying depths or varying thicknesses over the old structure, so that in the end we got a roof that actually shed water to the outside of the building.
From our initial involvement with the project, when we undertook the dilapidation survey, it became obvious that the back half of the eastern wall adjacent to Harriet Street was continuing to lean more and more towards the street, to the point that we were getting concerned about its safety.
We realised there was enough integrity in the brickwork itself that we could straighten it, which is quite a simple process really if you can remove all the earlier patching materials from the cracks. Like I say, the wall will act as one slab as long as it's supported properly, and you can just literally push it over with a couple of acro props.
We got Peter Russell from Russell Stonework to come in, and he strongly advised that he believed the wall could be underpinned and then could be jacked back into position.
Are you doing 2 or 1?
2.
Oh, you're doing... All right.
Does it seem to be slipping on this wall that you're landing on?
When work started, the archaeologists discovered there was a cellar under the north room, and it was decided to remove all the dirt, to excavate it, to see what shape it was in. And digging out dirt is no big deal. It was how to get it out of the building, which was a problem. And we rented a hopper lift that we could stick through the window to dispose of the dirt outside, so the archaeologists could have another look at the dirt as it came out. And it was quite good because the lift would follow the dirt level down into the pit, and still it made the job very easy to get it out. Otherwise it was just manual labor. As we got to the bottom, the moisture level rose and it got a little bit stickier, a little bit more clay. And then right down the bottom we found the white clay, the calcrete clay, which we assume was the original floor of the cellar. After the cellar was excavated, we found that the brickwork was generally in pretty good shape, but there were areas that were decayed and damp affected. So the stonemasons replaced some bricks and repointed up quite a bit of the others. The original timber nosings for the steps that went out to the east were all either white anteaten or rotten, so those were replaced. And then to support the floor over, the engineer decided that it should be supported off of the floor of the cellar rather than the walls. And as a dual purpose, the steel beams that supported that were supposed to help hold the walls of the cellar back. Although I think they're in pretty good shape, it probably was possibly not necessary. Some of the original lath and plaster ceilings were still in existence in the building, but both with the fire and the water damage and termite damage had weakened the structure, holding them up. We cleaned out and saturated the old lath and plaster with an acrylic emulsion that soaked down and consolidated so it acted like a solid sheet of plaster. And then we adhered that to the new roof structure. And then, once the new roof was on and everything, we could fix new laths to the new structure so that we could put new lath and plaster back in the areas that were missing. In the areas where the existing lath and plaster and the structure behind was completely missing, we decided to put the new framing in and then just plasterboard to differentiate between what was existing lath and plaster and what was a completely new ceiling.